BS-Free Witchcraft is a production of the Nerd and Tie Podcast Network. Nerd and Tie produces podcasts ranging from actual play to true crime, and you can find more at nerdandtie.com or join our Discord by going to nerdandtie.com/Discord. Welcome to BS-Free Witchcraft, your monthly guide to the modern witchcraft movement, minus a lot of the usual, well, bullshit. I'm your host, Trey Dorn. It is April of 2026, and we are having a time, folks. We are having a time. I am so busy right now, and I have been so burnt out because for those of you who don't follow me outside of like witchcraft stuff, besides, this podcast, and I do like TikToks and other social media, and I do other podcasts like, the actual play shows, and like some of you know that, but I also help run a convention. I am one of the co-founders of No Brand Con, Wisconsin's longest running anime convention, and we're coming back literally in really soon after a hiatus. We're holding a convention May 1st through 3rd in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, where I live. And I am in charge of several departments, and I have been losing my mind. So I originally, last night, recorded an entire podcast for this month. I did a whole episode, and while it is the topic I really want to talk about, I didn't hit it quite from the angle that I'm really happy with. And also, I feel like I sounded completely manic. Like it's bad. It's a bad episode of this show, and I don't want to put it out as like an episode of this show. But it is a whole episode of this show. So what I'm going to do is I decide in this moment, recording the actual show. This is the actual show that is going out as April's episode. This is going out to both the Patreon patrons and to the public. I will, this comes out on April 25th to the public. And I'm going to put this out. But for the Patreon patrons, if you really want to see the bad version of this episode, I'm going to make that a Patreon exclusive. I need to do more Patreon exclusive content. I'm not going to edit it. I'm just going to give you guys the raw episode on Patreon. I don't do a ton of editing on this show, so it's really not, but no music, I'm not going to clean up the noise out of the audio. I'm just going to drop that on the Patreon today. And, so you don't have to watch it, but it'll be there if you want to know what it's like with me freaking out. Cause again, like I have so much stuff going on, guys. Like it's not even bringing up like the other stuff I do, like the webcomics, or, we have the first print collection of Peregrine Lake, the webcomic I write, coming out May 1st, the same weekend as the convention I'm running. Welcome to Peregrine Lake. Not a bad shot. For audio listeners, I threw a book. That's what happened there. I'm realizing that that's a visual effect that doesn't play over when literally over 90% of the people who like 95% of the people who are like listeners of the show only listen to the audio version. So why I did a little visual flair, I don't know. I never know why I do anything. Anyways, we should actually like start the episode now, right? What I wanted to talk about this month, though, is respect and how important it is when we talk with other witches and when we have conversations within our community. I originally framed this episode in what I'm calling the bad version as Arrogance Part 2, because I did that episode on arrogance in the witchcraft community back in 2024. And I think I made some good points in that episode, and I think that I reiterated some of those in the scrapped version of this episode, but I think the reason why it was fundamentally bothering me as a topic, the reason why I really wanted to talk about it is that one of the things that gets ignored in a lot of the focus about the modern witchcraft movement is the fact that we are a community. We are a community of witches with diverse opinions, ideas on metaphysics, spiritual beliefs, all of that. This is a community that is in many ways full of people with a lot of individualistic ideas. And I think it's great that people have lots of different ideas. Like, we talked about this a long time ago on this show, that any conversation between two witches is an interfaith discussion, effectively. At least the way we normally think about an interfaith discussion, because even the largest religious faction of witchcraft in the United States is Wicca, right? And that's an orthopraxic religion, not an orthodoxic religion. So the individual spiritual beliefs between people, even within that same religion, can differ greatly. So when we have conversations, when we talk to each other, we have to still treat them the way that we would a respectful interfaith conversation if we want to build any sort of true community. And I think that I've framed it as people being arrogant before, but I think that the more important part of the problem, right? Like, when I talk about arrogance there, and I talk about like people stating misinformation confidently because they overestimate their experience level and things like that, or at least are trying to portray themselves as a greater experience level. I think that what we are missing in that conversation is that the fundamental problem, the fundamental thing that is lacking in any of these conversations is respect. We aren't thinking of the other witches in the conversations we have. Like, when we enter, these discussions, and we enter this kind of discourse, a lot of people go in only thinking of their own opinions as correct, their own personal gnosis as correct, their own spiritual beliefs as the correct one. And a lot of this has to do with a lack of deconstruction of religious trauma coming from Christianity, because let's face it, a large percentage of witches in at least the United States and England are former Christians, and other places too, but not all, but a large percentage. And so a lot of them have still built in their ideas about their beliefs being truth, and that truth being important, whether they consciously recognize this or not. And that kind of what presents as arrogance is really a even unconscious lack of respect for the faith and beliefs that other people have. And if we want to be in community with other people, if we want to be in community with other witches, which I think a lot of us do, like, I don't think that people who spend their time listening to me on a monthly basis are doing this because they don't want to be in community with other people. Like, I think the people who reach out to each other, the people who join my Discord, and the people who join other Discords, the people who go on to social media to talk to other witches, the people who go even on to Witch Talk, which is sometimes almost a cesspool of people yelling at each other. Even at Witch Talk's most disrespectful, misinformation, overconfident way, are still people looking for community. Like, the people who go on to, it's if you go back to the episode that with where I had Thumper Forge on, we talked about like the people repeating misinformation about Wicca and things like that. Even those people who are doing that are doing it to be in community. Like, they are repeating the things that are said in the community they want to be a part of. They are trying to be part of an in-group. And I think that an important thing that is lost in a lot of these discussions, when people go out places and they confidently treat each other with disrespect, they are damaging their ability to find community. And let's talk about what I mean when I talk about like going in with disrespect. one of the things that we see a lot is, and this is a thing that anyone who has been on any active social media platform that has a bunch of witches on it has experienced at one point or another, especially if you're a creator. And now I know obviously I come from a creator's perspective because I make a bunch of stuff, right? I make a bunch of witchcraft content. So I experience this a lot in the form of the comments section, but I've seen this happen in regular social media. I have seen this happen in Facebook groups. If you were on Tumblr in 2014, you have definitely had this experience where someone's talking about their personal witchcraft practice, and they are talking about their own personal experiences, and not in a way to say that, even just talking about their beliefs or their faith or their spiritual practice or their witchcraft practice or anything. And someone shows up in response and says, no, you're wrong. This is how it works. And then goes on to explain something which is 100% their unverified personal gnosis. They confidently say, this is how it works. This is what it is. And it's 100% something that is only like, it is just their personal beliefs, and they present it as fact and truth. They present their unverified personal gnosis as truth and fact. We've all seen this, and most of us know, at least you should at this point, how insulting that feels if someone shows up and does that. And I don't mean like saying, oh, that's interesting. In my experience or in my beliefs, I think it works this way. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about someone going like, the universe works this specific way. You are wrong. It's like if you're on Tumblr in 2014 and you're a secular witch posting about doing a curse, and some teenage Wiccan who has read a book shows up and responds, but what about the threefold rule? You're ignoring the truth about the way magic works, right? Like, that's disrespectful. That is a disrespectful way to talk to other people. And this need to be overconfident, this arrogance, it infects all levels of experience in the witchcraft community, in my opinion. One of the reasons why I wanted to make this episode is because I got into an argument. I'm not going to like call out specific people. I'm not going to give enough details for you to find people, but I got into an argument with someone because they disliked my definition of witch, that I hinged it on, because, if you've listened to the show, if you've watched the show, you know that the definition of witch that I use is that a person who is a witch, all it is, it's a very simple word. It is someone who practices a magical system that can be described as witchcraft and chooses to call themselves a witch. This person took issue with the fact that I was using the word witch in my definition, but I'm only using it as the witch. I'm not defining witch with the word witch. I'm saying chooses to call themselves. That is the active choice is the part of the sentence that's for. But they took issue with it. And then to be fair, in that definition, I don't define witchcraft. There's a whole other episode if you want to get my full thoughts on that. But as I ended up in a conversation with this person, the following things became very apparent. One, they were an experienced witch. They've been involved in witchcraft for decades. I was not talking to some new initiate who was just getting into stuff, or someone who had just picked up their first book and was trying out their first spells. This was a person who had experience in the witchcraft community. But they were clearly someone who was not exposed to the larger community. I'm in a position that I understand a lot of other witches aren't, where I actively seek out parts of the community that I wouldn't normally be a part of because I'm trying to I'm actively trying to understand perspectives that are not my own. I am actively trying to understand forms of witchcraft that are not my own. Because I'm doing this show. I gotta tell you, I would probably never read witchcraft books if I wasn't doing annual witchcraft book reviews now on this show. I don't read witchcraft books for fun. I don't. I am a person, I have been a witch since the 90s. It's probably been 28, 29 years, something like that, since I became a witch. I will think about the exact date later and get depressed about how old I am while I'm not on the camera. But like, I figured out how I wanted to practice witchcraft, and I figured out within probably the first 5 or 6 years about like the kinds of spells I like to do and what worked for me, what I was comfortable with, and then I just kept doing it. And I didn't feel the need to learn other kinds of witchcraft because I learned stuff that worked for me and it was great, and I kept doing it. I've kept doing it. That's what I do. You know what I mean? Like, my spell work seems to work for the stuff I want it to work for. I'm a witch. I'm happy. There's a lot of pressure in this community to keep expanding, keep reading, like, because we kind of like, I think it's because it's good for social media to have stuff you can buy. It's the consumer's mindset. And to be fair, there are people who genuinely love reading more witchcraft books and love expanding their witchcraft knowledge into more topics. But I think that there is and that is great. Like, if that is what you want, like, obviously people like that are the bread and butter of the audience of my show. So I'm like, no, you keep doing that. Like, I wouldn't review books at all if it weren't for the fact that there's a great interest about whether or not, like, there are good new books out there, right? That said, it means that, though, like, a lot of more experienced witches aren't necessarily like digging into other parts of the community where they aren't there. And this person who I was having this conversation with, they clearly were like very locked in and very rigid in the way that they thought about stuff. Because like they started to talk about giving their own definition of what a witch was, and they defined it as someone who practiced sympathetic magic. And to be fair, a lot of witchcraft does work around sympathetic magic. So much so that people don't always even think about the term. You know, it's like that is just what magic is for them, is sympathetic. But there are legitimate magical systems that are not functioning on that principle, right? There are lots of different opinions on metaphysics about why magic works, and not all of it functions on that principle. And I pointed it out. I was like, there are witches, there are people who are a part of the witchcraft community who practice magic that cannot be classified as sympathetic magic. And they said, well, give me an example. And I, off the top of my head, picked chaos magic, because I don't know a lot about chaos magic. I know a little bit. I'm going to know hopefully a lot more with next month's book review, because I'm going to review Thumper Forge's book on chaos magic for May. But like, there is sympathetic chaos magic, but there is non-sympathetic chaos magic, like both kinds. And so I was like, look at that, there are witches who do this. And this person very confidently told me that people who practice chaos magic are not witches. To which I'm like, I mean, some of them aren't. Some of them are. You don't talk to people, do you? Like, it became very clear throughout this conversation, and through much more of this conversation as it continued, that this person does not really have a lot of contact with a diverse segment of this community, with a wider part of this community. And like, I get that, but they entered that conversation deciding to tell me that I was wrong and that they were right. And the moment I said, no, I think I'm right, and there are reasons for this, took that as an offense. As they entered the conversation disrespectful to me, and then expected to be treated with authority. They entered that conversation not like they were having not like they were talking to an equal. And that is such a frustrating thing because, really, while there are witches of differing experience, we are all walking down different paths. I'm not in your head, I'm not in your house is a very it's a core part of my philosophy on how I do things, right? Like, I have not had your personal experiences. I am not in your home, like, telling you what to do. But, like, this, if you want to have a conversation with someone, if you want to try to have a discussion with someone, you have to enter that discussion respectfully if you want them to treat you with respect, which is why I have ended up responding to this person with snark, because they entered the conversation acting like a dick. And I do have a rule. I return the energy people bring to me. If someone enters a conversation respectfully, I will respond to them respectfully. If they act like a dick, I'm not gonna hesitate acting like a dick in response. That is just me. And I know that, like, there are times where I enter a conversation disrespectfully. There are 100% times when I do that. But sometimes that's on purpose. Like if you are passing blatant misinformation, like if you are saying something that is untrue, I will try to correct you, because people pass around harmful misinformation in our community all the time. But it's so, and like, if you're doing something racist, I'm gonna tell you you're being racist. And guess what? I'm not trying to be respectful when I do that. But if you want to have a conversation with another witch, you, like, about the nature of magic, about the nature of what we're doing, you have to be respectful in the way you approach it. Like, there are things that can't be disputed, like historical facts, right? Like, when I argue against the Mesopotamian Lilith ever existing, and we talk about how the Lilitu were a category of night spirits and are not the same as a singular figure from Jewish folklore, and how the reason why this conflation happens is because of Kramer's mistranslation of the Epic of Gilgamesh, and then Kraling and Frankfurt's misidentification of the Burney relief as Lilith, when really it is more likely a representation of a Reshkagel. In fact, most people are pretty certain it's a Reshkagel. There are some people in the it's Inanna camp, but either way, not a Lilitu, not Lilith. It is either a Reshkagel or Inanna, and that's a debate that archaeologists can have. And either way, it's not a thing. Like, you can say that confidently because there are verifiable facts. There are things to go. Like, if you need me to provide sources, I can give you sources. Like, that's not to, like, point out misinformation like that. That's not the same as going in and trying to confidently state things about your personal beliefs, about your personal conception of metaphysics, about your personal interpretation of specific events as signs, omens, or other things like that. And we have to have respect when we have those conversations. Likewise, we have to be willing to admit that we don't know things, that we have blind spots. Like, there is an instinct in a lot of people in the witchcraft community, because I think a lot of people come to witchcraft because they're seeking power. A lot of people come into this community because they don't feel empowered in their daily life and they want to feel important. And that's why they become a witch. Not everybody, but there's a percentage of people who do that. And so what happens is, when they have a blind spot, when they don't know something, they want to maintain the image of the knowledgeable witch. And so they just kind of act like they know stuff they don't. They will confidently repeat a thing they heard once without looking into it. And people, you need to be willing to say, I don't know about that. right? Like, this is a thing that happens to me all the time because I'm a witch with a platform where people will come and ask me questions about things, about my opinions about things. And I try to do my best to answer them, but sometimes people ask me about stuff I just don't know anything about. Like, I don't know anything about tarot at all. Like, I know a little bit about it. Like, I know, like, I can, if so, I can bullshit my way through a conversation about the major arcana, I guess, but that's mostly just osmosis. I technically own a tarot deck, but it's in a closet. I've never done a tarot reading. I have never researched the meanings of cards. I have never, like, I don't, if you hand me a deck of cards and said, hey, do a tarot spread, I wouldn't even know how many cards to draw, where to place them, what anything meant. Because I have never done it. I have never been interested in any form of cartomancy. There's nothing wrong with it. I think it's cool that other people are into it. And, like, if I ever did an episode on it, it would be about the history. And, like, I would have to do a lot of research because off the top of my dome, don't know a lot. Like, I have read things historically, but not enough where I can, like, pull that information up. So if someone asks me about it, I will just tell them, I don't know anything about that. I am not your witch for that question. Because there's there's lots of different kinds of things in witchcraft, and lots of different things that are done by witches, and not every witch does everything. But there are a lot of people who will, like, there are people, like, if someone came to them with a question about a type of magic, they'll just go Google it, spit something out, and pretend like, oh yes, no, I'm very smart. I know what I'm talking about all the time. I'm like, no. You have to be willing. You have to be willing to admit your blind spots. You have to be willing to admit when you're wrong. I am confident I have made mistakes on this show. And if you want to talk about them, I am more than happy to do so. Like, I talked about, like, when the threefold rule episode, I originally found sources that attributed the modern interpretation of the threefold rule in Wicca to Monique Wilson. But since then, I have not been able to find sources that corroborate with the original ones I did, because the citations they had did not actually seem to lead to that. And I don't know. Like, we know roughly when it happened. We know Buckland popularized it, but we don't know. And we know that Gwen Thompson included it in her version of the Reed poem, and it is so different from anything that Gardner ever said and did. Like, it's, but I put a name on there in an earlier episode that was based off of a source that I had, and I have not been able to verify it. I think I was wrong. I think I said a wrong thing in that episode. And I can't, I can admit that, right? Like, I think it's important that I'm willing to admit that, where if you find something in one of my episodes and you have sources and evidence to back it up and you show it to me, I am willing to reevaluate. And I think we all need to be. You need to be willing to reevaluate what you know, because we are all seeking something. And I think that we should be trying to understand the truth. Someone said to me, well, I'm trying to seek the truth. And I feel like they said that in bad faith in that conversation. But, like, I do feel like we all are trying to seek the truth in many ways. What truth we're trying to find, that can vary by the witch. But I do feel like we can't be so closed off in our certainty about anything that we are blind to contradictory evidence. And we have to be open to that. And we have to be open and respectful. I know this is a lot to say, just don't act like a dick to other witches if you want to have community, but that's really what it is, because I think that the only way that we can build a stable community that isn't toxic, that isn't, like, full of antagonism and backfighting is, like, I spent a lot of my life trying to build communities, like, this is related to why I do conventions, right? Like, the reason I got involved with anime conventions is because before I got into witchcraft, before I did that, the first place I really found a community in my life where I felt accepted and like I belonged was in the geek community, in convention scenes. Like, I think it was Gen Con 1994. I was 13 years old. And it was the first time I went somewhere, and I really felt like I wasn't weird. Like, that I felt like I belonged somewhere, like in a community for the first time in my life. And I think a lot of people are searching for that. And that's why, like, I started my own convention in my 20s, and I still go to all of these events in that community, but I think a lot of people come to witchcraft for that same kind of community. Like, a lot of people do it for individual power, for individual like expression, and for finding that. But I don't, if we didn't want community, I don't think people would be building these social media platforms. I don't think people would be watching things on WitchTech. I don't think people would be reaching out on Tumblr. I don't think people would be going to their local witch stores and talking with the other witches. We wouldn't be seeking each other out. You wouldn't be listening to me talk about whatever this was for this long if part of you did not want to be in community with others and to form a healthy community with others in any situation. It takes respect. We have to give each other the basic respect, and we have to be humble. And these two things, I think, are fundamental, because witches, we are in theory a community of equals. I understand that there is a difference in experience. We are unequal in experience. We are unequal in skill, but that does not mean we are unequal in our humanity. And it does not mean we are unequal in our beliefs, in our faiths, in our spirituality, in our non-spirituality. For the people who practice witchcraft very differently than me. And we have all chosen to be a part of this community. We choose the title of witch. And as we make that choice, I think it's important to remember that respect is the fundamental core of any community. And if we want to have this community, we need to give it to each other. I think that's all I have to say about that. I want to thank you guys for tuning in for yet another month. Just a reminder that the show is able to keep going because of my lovely community on Patreon. Patreon patrons who pay at even the $1 level get episodes like this a whole week early. And in the case of this month, are getting a whole bonus episode that is terrible. The bonus episode is bad. Guys, it's like a bad version of this episode, but I'm going to give it to you guys on Patreon. You can have it. I want to thank people at the shout-out level of Lindsay Dosey, Claire Dennis, Pamela Stariak, Elder Gamble, and Badass Babe. And again, there are lots of other rewards at very different tiers. Everybody at the $1 level gets a copy of my role-playing game, Super Awesome Action Heroes, as an ebook. Members at the $5 level get copies of my urban fantasy novels 1 year after they come out included. And people at the $10 level get every ebook I ever put out right away. Once it comes out, they just get it. And again, everybody who pays gets access to exclusive Patreon content. I put out a whole video, I guess, this month that I wasn't planning on it. And then I plan on shooting some more stuff in May and June. Hold me to it. Harass me if I don't. But yeah, and there is a free tier if you just want to try to keep up with stuff I'm doing. I don't post there super often on the free tier, but occasionally if I've got big news, it'll go there too. So sign up for the free tier if you don't want to pay any money. Because again, it's free. That's cheaper than food. If you want to support me in other ways, you can follow me on social media at TRAEGORN on TikTok and on Tumblr, and at TRAEGORN.bsky.social on Blue Sky. And those are my main social media networks. You can also follow me on YouTube. So there's the BS for Witchcraft YouTube channel. And then if you want to like hear about like my writing stuff that like I cross post, any of my non-witchcraft TikToks get cross posted to my Tregorn, Tegorn account on YouTube. So that actually, I have 2 YouTube accounts in case you did not know. One of them is just mostly YouTube shorts of my current TikToks. And then there's the one that these videos go on, BS Free Witchcraft, which you can also follow there. If you want to follow the show on Facebook, it is facebook.com/BS Free Witchcraft. Please do not try to find my personal Facebook. That's where I talk to my mom. And the Patreon, of course, is patreon.com/TRAEGORN. I did not say that earlier. You could not have found my Patreon without that. Now I am telling you. And if you do want to just talk to me, like if you want to chat with me, we're part of the Nerd and Tie Podcast Network, and the Nerd and Tie Podcast Network has a Discord, which you can find at nerdandtie.com/Discord. And also we have a forum at nerdandtie.social. It is slow, but if you post anything there, I will read it. If you want to put something in front of my eyes, I will see it there. And the Nerd and Tie Podcast Network has a lot of other great shows, like Ask a Medievalist. It has Casual Trek. It has Stormwood and Associates, which is an actual play show. There's just a lot of fun stuff from a lot of great independent creators, and largely Wisconsin based. And we're fun people. We do fun things. And actually, E.H. Lupton, who is one of the hosts of Ask a Medievalist, just put out a new book, Renaissance, the 5th book in their Wisconsin Gothic series. And you should look at that if you are interested. The series starts with Dionysus in Wisconsin and keeps going. It's books. They're good. You should read them. You hear me plug my books all the time, but this is me plugging someone else's book. It's exciting, and there is information about that on nerdandtie.com. You can go look for yourself with your eyes that are presumably in your head. If your eyes are elsewhere from your head, please contact medical attention immediately. Anyways, with that, we are going to bring the episode to a close. Remember, magicians, dirt in our fingernails, brick in our hands, and I will talk to you next month.